There we are. Good morning, friends. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. Started that in the wrong key. Wow. It is morning. I don't know about for you, but for me it is. For me, it is Thursday, July 20th, and it is 9 a.m. What's going on here? Sorry about that. Little technical glitch on my end, what I'm trying to do over here anyway. But yeah, start over again. Today is Thursday for me. Today is Thursday, July 20th. That's twice I've done that this week. July 20th at 9 a.m. I don't know about for you, because I know some of you folks are able to join me live. Others aren't able to do that and join at other times. I'm glad you're willing to join me, that you're interested in joining me and participating in this conversation about the Bible, because that's what we do. That's what we do. This is PB Reads the Bible. I'm PB, Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church. And this is the couple times a week where we get together. We join together and we read from the Bible. I'm reading from mine. Hopefully you're reading along in yours. And I give you some explanation of what it means, or at least of what I think it means, and what based on research that I've done, and what many scholars would say things mean. Because what we think something means isn't always what it means, especially not things, and that's true for anything, of course, but it's especially true for things that were written 2,500 years ago, in an entirely different place, entirely different time, entirely different social context. And context is an important word when we're talking about the Bible. I use that word a lot because knowing the context can help us understand the passage. And so we've been doing this for several years now. Yes, we've taken breaks over that time, as I've taken vacation, and as I took a renewal leave, and as we had a week or two between books, but we've been doing a lot of it, and we've gotten through a whole bunch of the books of the Bible. Excuse me. And right now we just got started last week looking at the Book of Kings. Yes, I say Book of Kings because it was originally one book, not two, and it is still that way in the Hebrew Bible, or at least most Hebrew Bibles, the official Hebrew Bibles, we might say. Somebody many years ago decided to split it into two, maybe too large of a document if it was left by itself. Anyway, so that's what we're doing. Before we get into that, though, let me know you're there. Let me know you've joined, either because you're joining live or because you're joining some other time. Doesn't matter when. Please let me know that you're joining, and I keep you in prayer for that. And I just like to know as well. Romper room roll call, right? Oh, good morning, Marilyn. Good to have you with us on time. That's fine. That's fine. There's no punishment for your tardiness. I don't give out demerits or anything like that. I'm just so glad that folks find this of value. I am humbled. I am humbled by the fact that folks could join again and again and again, and that folks ask me, hey, what's next? And that folks say, I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me, and I'm humbled to think that God is using me in this way. And I'm glad that the church supports this, that Christ UMC supports it and lets me do this, and that we're able to do it through technology, which is pretty amazing. So go ahead, check in, say hello, good morning or good afternoon or whatever it is, and let me know what time it is. I know some folks aren't able to join live, and they join at 3:00 the following morning or something like that, or they're trying to have trouble sleeping, or they're just trying to get caught up. The other thing I would ask is that you put your prayer requests in there. What is it that's lifting you up or weighing you down? Because This is a small group, and small groups share life. That's what we do. We share life. And one of the ways we share life is by sharing those joys and concerns and by praying for each other. So please do that. Please do that. And of course, if there's something that you just wanted special, I'm not gonna say special prayer, but if you wanted something that you want to keep a little bit more anonymous, you only want me to know about, go ahead and send me a text on that. 570-351-1619. And if for some reason you're unable to check in on Facebook, on the stream to let me know that you're there, you can also let me know via texting that you've joined in. If you're joining at 3:00 in the morning, please don't send me a text, or please don't expect me to reply to your text at 3:00 in the morning. I will definitely be asleep. You'll get a reply about 5:10 or 5:30, something like that. All right. That's it for that. So today is Thursday, so this is the last episode for this week. We've cut down on that. It was getting a little too much doing it every day, and I know many of you folks know this because you've been following along, so you know that we've gone from like 6 days a week or 5 days a week down to 3 or 4, and we're at 2. We're at 2. It works best for my schedule, and to accommodate other things, and I appreciate your understanding of that. Oh, good morning, Shar. We're glad you were able to join us this morning as well. Apologies. Nothing I need to reply to at this moment. Glad you're able to join us as well, Shar. All right. So announcements. This is the last one for today, so I will do some announcements. We do have worship coming up, of course, on Sunday in person at 8:15 and 10:45. We would love to have you show up in person at either of those worship experiences. We think there's a value to being together. We understand, excuse me, for various reasons, people cannot be here in person because you live too far away, or because there's a health issue or something like that. Because of that, we also offer our 10:45 is also live streamed. So 8:15 and 10:45 in person. 10:45 is also live streamed. So again, we'd love to see you in person, but if you can't do that, then join us for worship. Become a participant in worship via the 10:45 live stream, which is available on Facebook, YouTube, and our website as well. If you haven't checked out our website, I always encourage people to do that, umcchrist.org. There's lots of stuff there, various things explaining at least some of our ministries. And yes, there's ways to give via the website. It will explain some of the options as far as making contributions to the church's financial situation, including PayPal or mailing in checks and stuff like that. But check it out for all the other stuff that's there as well, including links to Noah's Ark, if you wanted to know more about our ministry there with the children, which is awesome. Okay, so today we're on 1 Kings. We're going to start with chapter 2, verse 1. I'm not sure how much we're going to get through. Maybe we'll get through the entirety of chapter 2. I think we should be able to. But if not, then not. We're going to start it now. So as a reminder, a refresher, David, we've been told that David is weak. He's approaching the end of his life. His son Adonijah tried to usurp the throne, lay claim to the throne, and he did so mostly through his father's, I guess you would say, oldest compatriots, the ones from the south, mostly people from Judah. Shouldn't say mostly, only people from Judah, people that were part of the kingdom as it was in Hebron, rather than using any of the people from Jerusalem or from most of the north, from the north. He seems to be trying to track that. So it's almost like David's kingdom is falling apart. This united kingdom under David seems to be on the verge. It's on the precipice. And so chapter 2, chapter 2, we're going to see, but David intervened, and he had Solomon anointed as king, proclaimed as king, and placed on the throne. Now, David is still alive, so we would presume, I mean, David doesn't say he's abdicating the throne for sure. We sort of presume that there was almost a co-regency, that they reigned together, maybe divided things. Obviously, we don't know for sure, because this is one of the only documents that we have to go by. Much of what we know of Israel's history, or what we think we know of Israel's history, is based on this book. So we don't know for sure. Now, Solomon is the king, and David's gonna give his son Solomon some final instructions, and Solomon is going to work to consolidate power, to make sure that the kingdom stays together in one piece and in one thing. And we'll see how he goes about doing that. All right, so chapter 2, verse 1. When David's time to die drew near, he charged his son Solomon, saying, I am about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong, be courageous, and keep the charge of Yahweh your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, so that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn. Then Yahweh will establish his word that he spoke concerning me. If your heirs take heed to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness, with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not fail you a successor on the throne of Israel. Pause. So this is the opening piece. We're told David is basically you'd say he's on his deathbed, right? And his time is short. His time is drawing to an end. Final days, however you want to phrase it, and he's giving his last testament, his last statement to his son, who is going to rule in his place. This is a very common thing to happen. Of course, it still happens today. But when we have the opportunity, we might want to make our final statement or our last testament. We have our last will and testament. Our will is how we're going to distribute stuff, but the testament is a statement that we want to make, words that we want to leave behind, what we want to be remembered for, whatever. And overall, this little piece here, this beginning piece, follows a particular pattern, a usual pattern. We've seen it already in Genesis, when Jacob was going to die. Very similar words. And it's also in extra biblical, in things outside of the Bible. And not only in Israel, but in Egypt. Some people use very, very similar language. So it seems to be, the thing, almost like Brian Lucas, being of sound mind and body, right? That's how we typically have the beginning of a last will and testament, at least in the movies and on TV. It usually begins with words like that. So this is very similar to it. However, we see the Deuteronomistic editor throwing some stuff in here. The idea of David telling Solomon, be strong, be courageous, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways. That could certainly be David writing that. But then it gets into his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses. This is very Deuteronomistic language. So most scholars would agree, at least many scholars would agree, that we see that Deuteronomistic editor throwing stuff, inserting stuff in here because it goes very well. Everything that David said here is basically Deuteronomy, and also like Leviticus and stuff, but in particular Deuteronomy. And so the Deuteronomistic editor, get it? Deuteronomistic, is very interested in keeping like that high level of honor towards those things. So it's probably him throwing that in there. But again, could be David stating that, reminding David or Solomon of the promise. If you do this, because that was what God had said, you keep my ways, God will make sure that that our throne lasts. Successor. Picking up from there. Moreover, you know also what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, how he dealt with the two commanders of the armies of Israel, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether, whom he murdered, retaliating in time of peace for blood that had been shed in war, and putting the blood of war on the belt around his waist and on the sandals on his feet. Act, therefore, according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace. Deal loyally, however, with the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table. For with such loyalty, they met me when I fled from your brother Absalom. There is also with you Shimea, son of Gera, the Benjaminite from Bahurim, who cursed me with a terrible curse on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But when he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by Yahweh, I will not put you to death with the sword. Therefore, do not hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man. You will know what you ought to do to him, and you must bring his gray head down with blood to Sheol. Pause. Okay. Anybody ever watched the movie The Godfather? I had a hard time reading this passage without using Marlon Brando's voice as I was doing it. In place of David. You know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me. Because there's the scene in The Godfather when Don Corleone, Marlon Brando's character, is speaking with his son, Michael, preparing him to take over as the leader, as the Don of the mafia. And he's telling him, the one who comes to you first after my death is the one you have to watch out for. And he's the one that's plotting. And like immediately after the death and the funeral, Michael goes and like kills everybody, right? He's given these instructions by his father in advance. That's what David's doing. It's people that he didn't take care of while he was alive for various reasons, mostly political. But now it wants Solomon to take care of them. And this is how Solomon is going to consolidate and hold together the kingdom. So as a reminder of these, Joab was a leader in David's army, right? Loyal to him. But we have those two stories back in 2 Samuel of these two people that Abner killed. Now, I'm sorry, that Joab killed. The first one, Abner, it was after he had come to David because he was part of Saul's army, but he came to David, wanted to kind of he wanted to jump ship, so to speak, and come on with David's crew, and David guaranteed him safety. guaranteed him safety, but Abner killed him. Out of revenge, Joab killed Abner out of revenge for Abner having killed Joab's brother. But he had killed his brother during war. In fact, he killed Joab's brother, we might say, out of self-defense and preservation, because Joab's brother was going to kill him. And so he struck first. He saved himself and killed him. And Joab, even though he had been told specifically by David, Abner is coming here and I've guaranteed him safety, Joab went and killed him anyway. And David said at the time that put blood guilt on me. Now, this other one was Amasa, and it was, sort of a similar situation. That's not out of revenge, mostly because he just didn't like him and didn't think he was, he wanted his place, whatever. But again, he killed him, even though, he wasn't supposed to, David did not punish Joab, and especially not punishment fitting the crime based on the way they did it then. He was guilty, he had blood guilt. He transferred the blood guilt onto David. Through it, David should have had Joab executed to make things right. He didn't. Shimei cursed David as David fled. But then as David was coming back, being led back, and he gets to the Jordan, and Shimei shows up to welcome him, says, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't really mean to do that. And, I'm going to be loyal to you. You are the good king," and all that kind of stuff. And he did have about 1,000 troops standing behind him at the time, Benjaminites. Now, so that might have been part of his willingness to say this to David. And that also was probably part of the reason David said, "It's okay, I'm not going to kill you by the sword," because he didn't want to upset the Benjaminites. He's looking to pull things back together, because this was another time that things almost started to fall apart because of Absalom. So he wanted to bring the Benjaminites back and, consolidate things at that time. And so it worked. But now that he's going to be going the way of all the earth and of all creation, and he's going to die, he wants Solomon to shorten the lives. And don't let them go down with gray hair. Shorten the lives of Joab and Shimei. And he wants them to kill him. Now, there's a word in there that he uses, that's used a couple times. According to your wisdom. In verse 6, it says, according to your wisdom. And then later on, towards the end of the passage, yes. And then also in verse 9, it says, for you are a wise man. And here's the thing with the word wise, especially when we think about Solomon, of our heads, our brains, our minds always go to wisdom, to what we think of as wisdom. And we think of Solomon with and I know this is sort of a spoiler alert, to that story of the two women with the one child. And Solomon being able to figure things out. So he's not just smart, he's wise, he's got wisdom, and people come from all over for his wisdom. The word wisdom, especially here, probably doesn't mean that. Wisdom can mean multiple things. In particular, it can mean shrewdness. And political expediency, political tact, or diplomacy kind of thing. So it's not that he's using wisdom that we would think of wisdom, but being shrewd and politically wise and doing the things that he needs to do. That's what David is telling him. So you need to use this shrewdness and get rid of Joab and Shimei. At the same time, we've got in between those two, right? In between those two, sandwiched in between the two, we've got the sons of Barzillai. the Gileadite. Again, refresher. If you followed through Samuel, this is a refresher. If you didn't follow through Samuel, this is your brief education on it, and that's great. When David had to flee from Jerusalem because of his son Absalom, and after having met Shemiah, who cursed at him and threw stones and all that kind of stuff, he met up with Barzillai the Gileadite, who welcomed him, gave him and his mini entourage safe passage, a place to stay, fed them, gave them supplies. And then when David was coming back to Jerusalem, Barzillai came with him to a point. David said, hey, I would love to have you join my court. I would love to have you, stay in Jerusalem, come to Jerusalem with me, be part of my court and eat at my table. Barzillai declined, saying he had kind of like too much to do, kind of thing, but he sent his at least one son in his stead. He said, I'm going to send my son instead, and he can be my representative, and you can honor him as if you would honor me. All of which sounds great. And David is saying, remember, Barzillai and his sons, deal loyally with them, and let them be among those who eat at your table. Now, there's almost a two-edged sword to that statement, because we think it sounds great. Hey, you're eating at the king's table. That's awesome, which is great, and it can be an honor. But the king also wants certain people at the table so he can keep an eye on them. Yeah, so which is it for these guys? Maybe a little bit of both. Based on Barzillai means kind of like Iron Man. No, not Tony Stark, Iron Man, Marvel movies, but Iron Man, a man of iron. We think he actually might have dealt with iron, and near the place where David met him, which name of the town escapes me at this moment, near where he was from. In Gilead, they have discovered iron ore deposits, heavy iron ore deposits, and early industry based on iron. Now, iron, especially at this time, super important for weapons. And so it would be very convenient to have Iron Man or Iron Man's sons close to you, where you can keep an eye on them and have a relationship and get the iron that you need whenever you need it. Okay. And so David is giving this wisdom, this advice to his son Solomon. So be nice to them, but kill those other two guys. All right. Lots of stuff built into there. And can you hear Marlon Brando? You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding. All right, picking up from there, verse 10. Then David slept with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. The time that David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his kingdom was firmly established. And we're gonna continue to see how it is firmly established as he consolidates his power. And remember, Adonijah, he's coming back. Then Adonijah, son of Haggith, came to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. She asked, "Do you come peaceably?" He said, "Peaceably." Then he said, "May I have a word with you?" She said, "Go on." He said, "You know that the kingdom was mine, and that all Israel expected me to reign. However, the kingdom has turned about and become my brother's, for it was his from Yahweh. And now I have one request to make of you. Do not refuse me." She said to him, "Go on." He said, "Please ask King Solomon. He will not refuse you, to give me Abishag, the Shunammite, as my wife. Pause. Just as a reminder, who is Abishag, the Shunammite? The very beautiful virgin, most described as the most beautiful virgin in all of Israel, who slept with David, lied in his bosom, even though they didn't have sex, we're told, to try to keep him warm. Adonijah wants her. That sounds like an innocent request. Is it? Let's continue and find out. Bathsheba said, very well, I will speak to the king on your behalf. So Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him on behalf of Adonijah. The king rose to meet her and bowed down to her. Then he sat on his throne and had a throne brought for the king's mother, and she sat on his right. Then she said, I have one small request to make of you. Do not refuse me. And the king said to her, make your request, my mother, for I will not refuse you. She said, let Abishag, the Shunammite, be given to your brother Adonijah as his wife. Again, sounds like a simple request. King Solomon answered his mother, and why do you ask Abishag, the Shunammite, for Adonijah? Ask for him the kingdom as well, for he is my elder brother, and not only for him, but also for the priest Abiathar and for Joab, son of Zeruiah. Pause. Notice the names, the people who were on Adonijah's side. Why is Solomon getting all upset? Because Abishag was the king's consort, the king's governess. And so by wanting her, by taking her, Adonijah wants to take the king's stuff. It wants to be the king. Then King Solomon swore by Yahweh, so may God do to me and more also. For Adonijah has devised this scheme at the risk of his life. Now, therefore, as Yahweh lives, who has established me and placed me on the throne of my father David, and who has made me a house as he promised, today Adonijah shall be put to death. So King Solomon sent Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. He struck him down and he died. Pause. And we saw this in 2 Samuel with Absalom, how when David fled, Absalom went up on the roof of the house, David's house, and had sex with David's wives and consorts, concubines, whatever. It is to show ownership and to take over position of the king. And that was what Adonijah was actually doing with his seemingly small, innocent request of this one woman to be his wife. Solomon did see through it. He was wise, shrewd, and political, figured it out, and has his brother put to death. Why? Well, because of this, and because he now realizes Adonijah, although Adonijah has said he's going to be a loyal man, a worthy man, that he is going to be a loyal servant, he really isn't. He's going to continue to look for ways to try to turn things upside down and take it over. So he needs to get rid of him. And again, Solomon mentions also in this statement about Joab and Abiathar, because those were the two bigwigs. That was the priest and the military leader that went with Adonijah. The king said to the priest Abiathar, go to Anathoth, to your estate, for you deserve death. But I will not at this time put you to death, because you carried the ark of Yahweh God before my father David, and because you shared in all the hardships my father endured. So Solomon banished Abiathar from being priest to Yahweh, thus fulfilling the word of Yahweh that he had spoken concerning the house of Eli in Shiloh. Pause. So He's being nice to Abiathar. He's exiling him, but he's not killing him from, because of his role in this attempted coup d'etat. But he's sparing his life because of the loyalty that he had previously shown his father David and all the bad stuff that he'd gone through with him. And we're reminded about early in Samuel, 1 Samuel, the promise of God to Eli that all the stuff that was going to happen to his kids, and it was going to end the line, Eli's line of prophets and priests. Picking up from there, when the news came to Joab, for Joab had supported Adonijah, though he had not supported Absalom, Joab fled to the tent of Yahweh and grasped the horns of the altar. Pause. Just a reminder from yesterday, if you were, or not yesterday, Tuesday, if you were with us Tuesday, and if not, this is your learning moment. They're talking about the tent of the sanctuary, the tabernacle, the tent of tabernacle, where the altar is, and the horns of the altar. There's the four corners of the altar that look like horns, and it's where blood is sprinkled on for forgiveness of sins. And if you grasp the horns, it became a tradition that if you grasp the horns in there, it was sanctuary. It's where we get the idea of sanctuary in a church from, at least partially, and that you could find asylum there and protection. Didn't always work. Is it going to work for Joab? Picking up from there, verse 29, when it was told King Solomon, Joab has fled to the tent of Yahweh and now is beside the altar, Solomon sent Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, saying, go, strike him down. So Benaiah came to the tent of Yahweh and said to him, the king commands, come out. But he said, no, I will die here. Then Benaiah brought the king word again, saying, thus said Joab, and thus he answered me. The king replied to him, do as he said, strike him down and bury him, and thus take away from me and from my father's house the guilt for the blood that Joab shed without cause. Yahweh will bring back his bloody deeds on his own heads, because without the knowledge of my father David, he attacked and killed with the sword 2 men more righteous and better than himself, Abner, son of Ner, commander of the army of Israel, and Amasa, son of Jether, commander of the army of Judah. So shall their blood come back on the head of Joab and on the head of his descendants forever. But to David and to his descendants and to his house and to the throne, there shall be peace from Yahweh forevermore. Then Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, went up and struck him down and killed him, and he was buried at his own house near the wilderness. The king put Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, over the army in his place, and the king put the priest Zadok in the place of Abiathar. Pause. So Solomon reiterates the reasoning behind Joab's execution. And this part, and back to the original part with David, seems to be certainly possible or plausible. Seems to be an editor from the Deuteronomistic time or somewhere along the line who was trying to write an apology for Solomon, making sure that Solomon isn't seen as the one responsible for these executions for Joab and for Shimea, because it kept emphasizing the fact that it was David's, you would say it was David's responsibility. He should have done it long ago and didn't. And it's, it's that Solomon is righting wrongs and certainly justifiable for what he's doing. And in fact, he's just following his father's instructions. So it seems to be, somebody writing an apology for Solomon. Okay, picking up from there. Then the king sent and summoned Shimea and said to him, build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there. And do not go out from there to any place whatever. For on the day you go out and cross the Wadi Kidron, know for certain that you shall die. Your blood shall be on your own land. On your own head. And Shimei said to the king, the sentence is fair. As my lord the king has said, so will your servant do. So Shimei lived in Jerusalem many days. Pause. Interesting. Solomon didn't do what his father asked him. Or does he? We'll have to wait and see on that. But it happened at the end of 3 years, that two of Shimei's slaves ran away to King Achish, son of Maacah of Gath. When it was told Shimei, your slaves are in Gath, Shimei arose and saddled a donkey and went to Achish in Gath to search for his slaves. Shimei went and brought his slaves from Gath. When Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and returned, the king sent and summoned Shimei and said to him, did I not make you swear by Yahweh and solemnly adjure yourself, adjure you, saying, know for certain that on the day you go out and go to any place, whatever, you shall die. And you said to me, the sentence is fair, I accept. Why then have you not kept your oath to Yahweh and the commandment with which I charged you? The king also said to Shimei, you know in your own heart all the evil that you did to my father David. So Yahweh will bring back your evil on your own head. But King Solomon shall be blessed, and the throne of David shall be established before Yahweh forever. Then the king commanded Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, and he went out and struck him down, and he died. So the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. So Solomon did go and do what he had promised his father to do, that he would make sure that Shimei went down to Sheol in blood, that his days were cut short. His days were cut short. But it was an interesting little intrigue and political device and things taking place there, wasn't it? This whole idea of build this house, stay here, don't move, you'll live until you do. Well, that finishes up chapter 2. We made it all the way through chapter 2 and it's 9:42, so that's awesome. So my friends, thank you for joining me this morning, this afternoon, this evening, tonight, tomorrow morning, whatever it is when you're joining in. I thank you for that, and I pray this has been beneficial to you, that you've learned something or relearned something, and that you find it beneficial as you go about your days, not just today, but every day. Keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to everything that our living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thank you, Papa, and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again,